Good afternoon, this is David Wendell with BushcraftOnFire, and we're glad to have you with us for another video. Many of you may remember Jason Lowery, who did our Eagle bushcrafting knife for me. He came out and he actually pounded the knife here on the property. Well, Jason's come out with another line of knives. I asked him if he could come out with some knives that would be an everyday low-cost knife for people that were interested in getting involved in bushcraft without having a big expense. And so Jason has come out with a line of knives for me that we're proud, and I think they're going to be real good for you. These knives are different types of knives. This is actually the man's knife, or for larger hands, and this knife is actually for smaller hands. Perhaps a woman or a child or a man that has smaller hands, and these bushcraft knives are pretty good. This is a tactical knife with a Tonto style blade on it. Now, let me tell you a little bit about these knives and show you how they work. Now, each of these knives is individually made. They're handmade. They're not put on a machine or pressed or stamped out. They're made of 1085 spring steel. They're made from 2-man pull saws, which Jason has got a hold of. And the handles are a polymer resin. Now, these handles are going to be a little bit different in the model that you would get, but the handles have all been heat tested. They won't malform. He's put them in boiling water at 212 degrees, and they will not malform. I wouldn't drop it in the fire. It will probably melt and malform. But being a high polymer resin, it's a good handle. Feels like rubber in your hand and really gives you a good grip. Jason's also put these in a vise, and they won't crush in a vise. They come right back to their shape. So it's a good overall knife. It's a strong knife for bushcrafting, for any medium to small camp chores that you need to do. Remember, this is not a large bushcrafting knife that's meant to go out and do a lot of chopping, although it will chop a little bit, as we'll see in just a few minutes. All of these knives have been shaped by hand, and they're done by stock removal. So there is no heat treating on this knife aside from the original heat treating when it was made as a saw. There's no tempering that's been taken out in the formation. They're all done with stock removal, as I said. So let's test these knives out a little bit. This knife is about a 6-inch blade, and the handle is another 5.5, 6 inches. I took a piece of elm down, and you can see this will do a nice job. It's really almost razor blade sharp, and for spring steel that's good. Has no problem with skinning. You can do standard camp chores as far as coming in, cutting notches. We can come in, do a little bit of carving. Say that we're, for instance, making a trap and need a stopper notch. So you can see that does a pretty quick job of it. As far as splitting, it's got a good point on it that if you want to split down a branch, or if you want to take apart a branch to make a fireboard, for instance, then carve your notch into the fireboard, you're able to do that. Again, Jason has tested this out, and it's a pretty strong little knife. Well, let's go over to the chopping block for a minute. Now let's take a look at how this knife chops, and then I'm going to have Tam show you how the knife designed for smaller hands works as well. Alright, again, for everyday utility, you've already seen this knife operates. I mean, it goes through cordage like butter. So it's a good knife, but let's see how it'll do in a situation where we may have to baton a little bit. I think you'll see that this is actually a pretty good deal. I can go ahead and put my knife on this piece of, I guess this is a piece of oak, which is pretty hard wood, and that batons right through there without any big problem. So again, we're going to be able to do a lot of our camp utilities. Right, we'll go ahead and try and make a little bit of a feather stick out of this, and you can see we're right in the heartwood. And that's taking down those, making that feather stick pretty handily. So we've gone through a little bit of carving, we've gone through a little bit of skinning of sticks, cutting some notches, we've gone through a pretty decent size of oak to go ahead and chop some sticks off, and made some feather sticks with this. Just a couple seconds on the ceramic rod, and we're right back to razor sharp. One of the things about this spring steel knife is that it's 1085, as I said already, and it's a little bit harder blade than other high carbon knives that you have out there. So it takes a little bit to sharpen it, but it does stay sharp for a long time. So now I'm going to turn this over to Tam and let her show you how the knife that's fashioned specifically for smaller hands, you women, you children out there, or men that have smaller hands, and how that knife works as well.
Hi there. My review is probably a little different than my husband's. I don't have all this knowledge of various steels and pressurized steel. All of that kind of goes over my head. As a housewife, as a bushcrafting woman, what I look for is functionability. If the knife is going to be something that I can utilize. So one of the boys here made me a little handy pouch. I've been carrying this knife around and testing it on different things. For example, as a housewife, y'all chop through tomatoes. Well, this knife here just goes through the tomato like as it were butter. And apples, again, not a problem. Chopping apples, skinning apples. I've used it for chopping through squash, through onions, basically everything that I would use inside my house, but also outside for whittling down small branches to make roasting sticks. So for a knife that's inexpensive, that I can really utilize in my daily life, I highly recommend this knife.
How does it fit in your hand, Tim?
Oh, it's awesome fit. You can see I can put pressure on the back. I can bear down while I'm chopping. It's just really handy for my hand, and just an overall knife that has great use inside or outside. Thanks a lot, Jason. I really appreciate this one.
Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this review of these knives. Again, this is the Bushcraft series. This is the large knife for men that may have large or medium hands. This is the tactical knife with the tanto blade. This is the woman's knife. And again, these handles are all pre-shaped and pre-formed. Now these will be available on Jason's website, and these knives are very reasonably priced. We've been working on our Bushcrafting on a Budget series, and this actually, this knife is actually set just exactly for this kind of a series. This female knife, or the smaller handed knife, will actually retail for $25 plus $5 for shipping and handling, and the larger blade and the tactical tanto blade will retail for $30 with $5 for shipping and handling. So again, it's a quality knife. Remember, Jason is a one-man operation, so it may take a few days for you to get these knives, but I think you're going to be pleased with them when you get them, that they're going to serve you well for your smaller and medium bushcrafting. This is David Wendell with Bushcraft on Fire. We thank you for joining in with us. We also want to thank you. We hit 1,000 subscribers yesterday, and we were actually waiting for that mark to make these knives available to you. So it's kind of our gift to you, our way of saying thank you, to give you an inexpensive knife that you can use out in the bush in your everyday bushcrafting. Hope you have a great day. Join us again for another video.